So here we are again with the Center for Education and Learning, the speaker series live. And we are fitting with the center here on galactic education to learn about us, other species and planets around us. And today I have the pleasure again to speak with Peter Maxwell Sanctuary. Peter, welcome.
Henning, always good, mate.
Yeah, Peter. And this time we want to speak about Earth's history. And let's get directly into the first question. And we spoke a little before, shared some information before. So the question is, why could it make sense that different versions of Earth's history exist?
So why does different versions of Earth history, and we could even say galactic history, exist? So the way I'd like to explain this, just from my lens, from my point of view, is that everyone's got a different experience. Every world's got different experiences and beings on those worlds or communities having experiences from their own perspective. So because of that in and of itself, like, let's look at Earth culture and different cultures within that culture, meaning Earth civilization. There's a difference of opinions, a different of ways, a different of history, or a difference in histories of how people have been taught, things have been passed down, how they've been educated. And as times have got more modern, and even today we're all still getting more on the same page with the internet being a valuable resource that we can all educate and learn things. There's also the old saying that the victors write the history books, meaning those who have won the wars and those that have come out on top have written the history books. And sometimes we could say that there's manipulation, as I'm sure a lot of the viewers and listeners are aware, of history to set a certain agenda, to dictate a certain story. And because of that, it can muddy the waters, along with what we could say negative entities and influences and what I deem as the lower light. So if you look at all those factors, as in another example, let's say there's 5 people from different angles experiencing a car accident. Now, the truth behind that car accident could be seen by maybe 1 or 2 people that the other people will not see from their perspective, and because of that they're not privy to that as an experience because it wasn't in their line of sight. So just like with history, there's the truth, but how we get to that truth, that's a very layered thing. Again, going to history books and who's dictated what can be taught, what can't be taught, and also you've also got the old syndrome of, if this goes against my research, even though it's newfounded information and it discredits what I've been working 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years on, this is where you get a lot of heads butting with geology, ancient archaeology, looking at the different layers, and we could say core samples, whether it's down in Antarctica or here on Earth in different areas. There's a whole complexity to this. So if we look at that on an Earth scale and now take that galactically, as well as past yugas and cycles where civilizations have been wiped out, unless that information is stored, we could say certain in a certain way, whether it's with crystal technology and or we've got source, people call it, the Akashic records out there, which really, when you're tapping in the source, you're tapping into all information that has and ever will be, we could say, from a certain perspective of going into the future, because past, present and future are happening at the same time. If you're able to tap into that field, if you're able to read into that field, that's where the real history is. But also, when you're in a human body having a human experience, you're only able to, we could say, integrate so much information in your own framework to be able to tell that, to be able to put the dots together on a different level of what you can take from God's mind, which is your mind, and linearize it in a way that's digestible. That's where we could really get the whole picture. And I don't think anyone's got the whole picture except our higher selves and source when we're in that state and we're able to commune with the divine. So it's very, we could say, layered, my answer of why there's different, we could say, aspects or different points of view or different histories of Earth's history and we could say galactic history. But everyone's got a different experience, and that means you experience what you do on Earth. And unless you've gone to every country and you've talked to everybody in every different culture and you've got every angle, you're not going to have even Earth's full history. But we could say a base level of that, which I think a lot of people out there have their own base level understanding from their own experiences, whether it's within Earth being contacts or extraterrestrial, angelic and celestial intelligences. But then the next best thing from that is to start looking at other people's stories and their own history that they're speaking, whether it's myself, James Gilliland, a whole host of other people out there. Don't believe us, but start connecting the dots on when there's a cross correlation, but what also the heart's telling you as well. So there's a huge history out there, and to understand what we can of it can help us understand why we are where we are now. But also it gives us the valuable knowledge and information to not repeat the past, but only us individually responsible for that. And when enough of us do it, the collective can take that chance and responsibility of not repeating that past again.
Or a suggestion for everyone, because ultimately I think it's up to everyone to make that connection to history, and in other words, we can transmit some information, but we also need to be aware whoever does it needs to, in the best case, meet everyone at the level they are. And that in itself is already also very challenging and individual. Anyway, let's get to the second question, Peter. What to highlight about our history carved in stone? In other words, there are, for example, things in pyramids. There are places where things were carved in stone. There is one place also in Australia. So again, what to highlight? What do you want to highlight? Could you highlight maybe about our history carved in stone?
So there's a lot of ancient sites around the world. And I think some of these places are trans-dimensional portals to where you've got past, present and future overlapping simultaneously, that a lot of these ancient sites are actually stargates as well as with pyramidal technology, which can be healing, it can be energy devices. It's got a whole plethora of different things that can be used at these, what the use are of these devices, we could say. One known one that I guess you're alluding to is the Gosford glyphs here in Australia.
Yeah.
Stephen and Evan Strong have done amazing work on this for many years, as well as other researchers are now getting their hands onto it. I know that Billy Carson went there in recent times and experienced it himself, and I've taken friends there like James Gilliland, John Vivanco and others there and visited the site. Not only with that, I'll go into also Uluru, which King of the Raven tribe, Ulukai Brendan Murray, a friend of mine, gave me some information on that, and I'll sort of connect a couple of things here as well. So there's different perspectives on this, but we could say the thumbnail sketch to put this down is that there is an ancient site where there isn't just one structure or one thing in that area of the Gosford glyphs. There's actually, from what I've been told in the past, I think around 150, maybe give or take, don't quote me, but from memory. And there's actually a pharaoh's tomb there, and I've actually held the kneecap of this pharaoh, and I can't remember off the cuff the pharaoh's names. There was two of them. What was happening was that in ancient times, the Egyptians and their mystery school teachings, that some of that was them coming to Australia, speaking to the Aboriginal, the original people, and getting their information that way. Very enlightened beings, the ancient Aboriginals. Now, what happened was these pharaohs went there at one time to steal information stored, I believe it was in a stone. Stones can be trans-dimensional hard drives. And when they took a stone, or it could have been stones, I can't remember the exact story off the top of my head at the moment because it's been so many years and I've got other things going on, other sort of avenues through my experiences, but they were told by the original people, you're not going to get away with it. And they were going to let them take it, but they just said, you're not going to get away with it. Well, one got bitten by a snake at the site and died there, and that's what the tomb's for. And another one, the other pharaoh, got shipwrecked. Or the pharaoh's sons, correct me, I think I've got that correct now. So, the site there's one wall which is pre-Egyptian glyphs on it. Again, I'm not an expert on this. The other wall is known as the Pleiadian glyphs, and apparently that stone was brought from 100 kilometres away to the site. I've been there, and it's got a basic story from recall of, and getting to the point with all this, that the Pleiadians came here, manipulated the Denisovian, the humanoid being that was here at that time, and created the Australian Aboriginal to incarnate into and have the human experience. Now let's take this to another level. Ulukai Brendan Murray, king of the Raven tribe, was telling myself and James Gilliland ages ago, I'd say probably 8 years ago, that Uluru itself, the big rock, the famous rock in the middle of Australia that's gigantic, is actually an arrowhead. And that it and the olgas around it, which are huge stones, you could say natural formations, but they were brought here from the Pleiades and smashed into Earth to terraform the planet for the civilization that was to come after, we could say, the dust settled. So, you go across all cultures, there's stories about beings from the stars, whether it's with the Dogon tribe, with the Syrians, Orions are mentioned even in Aboriginal original people culture as well as Native American and others, and the Pleiadians, the Pleiades star cluster comes up time and time and time and time again throughout the world, whether it's the Japanese, whether it's in cultures in South America, whether it's with the Native Americans, whether it's with the original people in Australia. There are stories also about the original people, Aboriginal people, and their remains being found in other countries around the world. Not just in Australia, but around the world that go back a long time. So when we even just look at what I've explained here with the galactic connection, it really tops on its head a lot of what we think we know in the history books. That I think that's part of the situation we're in, is that there are, we could say, people with an agenda out there to control a narrative, and things like this totally topple that on its head, the narrative that they're trying to project. And like I say, don't believe me, do your own research, follow the information and follow your heart. That's how we're going to get through some of this. And like you're saying, everyone's at their own level as well. But it's a different perspective. And as some people say, this all started in Australia and it will end in Australia and it will restart in Australia, these cycles of civilizations.
Oh, that's a great advice. I want to briefly say there was here for a moment a technical glitch maybe during you answering that, but let's see how the recording went finally. And let's move forward to the third question. What should we remember when learning about our and about Earth's history?
I would ask people to look at it like self-mastery. There's traits that we don't want to lose about each of the cultures on earth and customs that we don't want to lose. There's also soul evolving moments that we all have individually and as a collective in our cultures and societies and us as a collective on earth. I'd ask people to look at that, which would bring them back a few steps rather than evolve and move forward and elevate and ascend. These are things like wars. We do see also with the history of war that there is great evolution at times afterwards. Just like we could say we're going through a dark night of the soul now, or you do in your individual life. After that down period, as they say, the old saying goes, the wheel keeps turning, good times start to happen. It's about going, we could say like this, and riding the river of life rather than going up and down, depressed, extremely happy, depressed, extremely happy. We need an equilibrium between the two. And so where we can have that in our lives through looking and reflecting on history of not repeating mistakes, which is my point with this, look at the mistakes that we see in history with whatever country, with whatever people get an ego and then they have a huge downfall and many people are affected from it. What is the fruit you can see from past mistakes from heads of states and people that have, well known in history? Some have done great, amazing things, but then they've had a massive and equal to downfalls, which has been their demise after they've done great, amazing things. So that's what I would ask people to think about. When you're looking at history, are we seeing history repeat itself? That's only something that the individual can answer. And what can you do to prevent that if it's something that is taking humanity backwards? And learn from the things that excel and ascend humanity and take humanity to new heights from the history books. But don't live in that. You're bringing past events and past wars and past scenarios, differences into the present. What you're doing now is you're bringing those past issues into the present, which mean they're no longer a past issue in the quantum field. They're now in a present moment. They're now in the present moment and a present moment issue. So, like I say, with any of this, look at the fruit from the information. What can you glean from that and what can you use from that to make a better tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And I want to say, O'Brien, a few things when concluding. So I basically asked and believe to make this kind of suggestion. And I want to, it's not about advertising, but it's more about, hey, everyone can use, again, and should do their own research, his, her own best discernment, use all that. But I want to combine this recording with information on, let's put out there information, or everyone could look for that, about the place we were just highlighting there in Australia. And the other thing is, I want to also post a link to your meditation once tours, because there's a sequence in about remember or remembering. And again, meditations are sometimes or often very powerful to bring us steadily into other awareness or more peace and so on and so forth. But anyway, I'm basically tasked, or again, should highlight or want to highlight that. And again, everyone who comes across this is of course free to do whatever he, she wants. But again, I wanted or was tasked to conclude with that. And again, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. And
looking forward to a next recording. Or finally, anything to add from your perspective?
No, I think you've ended it well, which is, people just do their own research if they feel that calling. And yeah, definitely meditation can help with that. And there's a whole heap of free meditations on my YouTube and websites as well, if that can assist people, which there is a lot of feedback I get from them as well. But yeah, Henning, I think you put it well, whereas, you know, we've got to use discernment, we've got to do our own research. Like I said, some of the facts and figures I might be slightly off with what I just described, but it's just the gist of the story with the Pleiades and the Gosford glyphs there, and very interesting for people to research. I will add, actually, there's what they use to discredit the Gosford glyphs is there is a newer glyph there, which is the Anubis glyph. And I and others surmise that that was put here in recent times to discredit the rest of them. Now, John Vivanco talked to me about this, the well-known remote viewer who's worked on my case and other things. And when he first looked at them, he said he's getting conflicting information. There's new stuff, there's old stuff, and then there's extremely old stuff. And when I told him what I just told you, which is the ancient stuff is the Pleiadian wall, the newer stuff is the pre-Egyptian wall, and then you've got Anubis, that totally made sense to him after I said the Anubis one was done quite recently. So again, use discernment. We don't know what lengths some people will go to keep some of this knowledge hidden. I do, because whether it's threats and what have you and things that I've gone through and ridicule and what have you, there's an agenda out there and truth always wins. And that's the bottom line, and your heart will lead you to that truth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's less about the mind. The heart is the best orientation, the best indicator we all have. Thank you, Peter.